So let's look at another top commonly used is the constant top. And the constant top just makes a texture that is a single color. If I middle mouse click on it, you'll see the default size of these textures is 256 by 256. And you can change that again in the common page, but we'll leave that for now. It's 256 by 256. And I can just grab a color swatch here and get some other color here. You have an alpha, which is controlling how the opacity of it. And whenever you see the checkerboard in TouchDesigner, that is showing you the alpha channel behind, so you know that it's got an alpha. So let's try compositing this. I'm going to put it above. I want to put this constant over my movie. So I'm going to right-click on the output of constant and select over. And then I'm going to select, connect my movie into the second input. Now you see something interesting happened here. We have the resolution or the shape of the movie, but we have the constant is actually taking up the whole image. It's going over the entire image. The reason it's filling up the entire image is because the prefit overlay, it says set to full by default. And the overlay is the thing I'm putting over on top, overlay. So if I want to see the actual size of the square on top of the movie, I can go down and select native resolution. And now it's showing me something that makes more sense. You got a 256 by 256 movie, or sorry, texture on top of a 1280 by 720 movie. So if you want to work with pixel sizes, things of different sizes, and you want to composite them, you need to turn this to native resolution. And now I have some parameters here for the overtop, which I can adjust the composite. I can translate it in X and Y. Right? And I can scale the overlay. Basically, you have these transform parameters to control the overlay. And now also, if I go back to that constant and play with the alpha parameter, you can see now that it's compositing using the alpha.
Do you have different composite modes?
Well, we do. This is called the overtop, though, which only does over operation. So if I open up here, you'll see a few others like add, multiply, under, and we have one called composite that does them all, which I'm going to show you. Another very useful top is the text top. So I press tab, I type in text, and it's down here in the bottom of the fourth column. Okay. So what this will do is it will create a texture with text in it, and if I middle mouse click, I see it's also 256 by 256. And you can put in any text you want. You can go to the font page and change the fonts. Now any font that's installed on your system will be there. You can install any true type font, TTF file. You can also just load a special font file here, and let's say you're delivering this to a customer and you don't know what they have installed in their system, you can include the asset or the font file and then access it there.
Question. Does it support special characters? I tried using Scandinavian letters.
So we do support Unicode now, but not just through the font menu. Unicode, you need to set up a little bit of a Python patch to load in, and
so that's a separate process.
Yeah.
It's not natively.
No. We're working on improving that for the next version. But if I show you here, there is something. Where's the Python help?
You have to set a Python variable to contain the Unicode string and then reference it there, right?
Yeah, it's very. We have a patch already set to go, and you just load it in and play with it. So just some basic font size stuff, bold, italic, typical stuff for positioning. Again, the resolution is on the common page, right? So I don't need it this tall. Obviously, I can just put this down to 50 and maybe a little taller. Whenever you think of the resolution you want to override it, it's on the common page. And the other page we have for the font is color. So we have the font color itself. And then you also have background color. And there's borders here, which you can turn them on here, left border. It just adds some borders to your text top. Now I could now composite this over our movie. And I'll show you another trick with connecting operators. If I want to replace this wire from here, I can bring this down, and if you go over this wire, it turns yellow, and you can basically replace that connection. So now it disconnects the constant for me and connects the Halden text. And now I see my image being...
What if you want to composite both constant and text?
I would... Okay, so let's go back and do that. Like this. That would be one way.
So you add another over?
Another over, yeah. There is a multi-input composite top, which I'm going to get to in a few minutes, which allows you multiple inputs. However, if you want to position each layer independently, yeah, you do need a separate operator. So now, if I want to put this in the same area. Now, another thing you can do with any operator really is you can right-click on any operator, such as this one, I'll say, and you can select View, and it'll open the viewer in native resolution. So that is the actual perfect native resolution of the texture. If I was to do it with this one down here, right-click and go View, that is 1280 by 720. So that way there's no scaling in this image. You're looking at it pixel perfect. And also this is nice if you're working with multiple monitors. You might drag this over to your second monitor as a preview monitor, or sometimes you might let's say I want this up because I'm working way over here and I can't see it over there. So you can have it floating in your workspace. So like if I did a chop here, a wave chop, and I go View, I get a little viewer of the wave chop. These top operators, they have a little flag down at the bottom, and this is called the display flag, this little blue guy. If you turn that on, it's now working. You're now working on top of your image. So if you're just working on a single display like a laptop or something and you don't have that second monitor to see a preview, this is a nice way of saving space. Sometimes it can get a bit busy when there's a movie or like crazy graphics going on, but it's definitely something I use often. Okay, so I'm going to show you another very useful generator. If I open the Operate dialog and go to Tops, you'll actually notice something here. If you look carefully, there's dark operators and there's slightly lighter operators. All the dark operators are what we call generators, and they create a texture. So the text, the constant, and the movie file in, they are all generators. And the other ones, the filters that you plug into something and then filter the data, those are the lighter colored ones. So another very commonly used important generator is the ramp top. So you can type in ramp if you can't find it, and it's down here. Now the ramp top is, well, just that. This is a vertical ramp, but we have a few different types. So we have a horizontal, which is just as exciting. A radial, which goes from 0 to 360. And then a circular. All right, and there's a couple of parameters here. Phase is basically the position of the ramp. Maybe a little easier to see if you go vertical. You can see how we're just moving the phase. The period is how often it repeats itself, or basically the length. Okay. Now, right now I just have two colors, black and white. I'm going to put the phase back to 0. Sorry. And those are indicated by these two tabs. There's a little tab here and a little tab here. This is a bit of an old UI that needs to be reworked, but I need to show you how it works because it's not explained very well. If I want to make another color, let's say in the middle here, you can just click on that area and you see another tab. And it's the white one, so it's the one I have selected now. So I can change the color of that one. If I want to go and change this black to something different, I can select it now and it goes white, and I will select a dark blue or something. Now what if I accidentally click in here and I put one in, I didn't want it there. To get rid of one of these tabs, you click on it and drag it away and let go. That's the hidden secret. I'm going to select this one. I'm going to make an RGB ramp, but it's whatever you want to do. Also, this is working with hue, saturation, and value. If you want to work with RGB, you can click on this little tab here. I like HSV. Position here is also something I often use. So you got your X and your Y again. And let's just animate this ramp because animated ramps are fun. So and this, I'll just show you how to use a few chops to make a very quick animation cycle. So if we open up the upgrade dialog, and we already played with the green operators, the chops earlier, and Greg's going to go into them in detail, but one of my favorite 3 combos is a constant chop. So you take a constant chop and right click on the output and find speed chop. And then right click again on the output of speed and type in null and look for a null chop. So what is this going to do? Constant basically just creates a channel for us. The same way that the constant top just creates a color for us, the constant chop just creates a single channel of value, and you can move that with this slider over here. If you select it, and you can see that I'm just changing this value from 0 to 1. It's nothing fancy. But what happens is if you put it into a speed chop, basically the speed chop will count forward or calculate the speed as you increase the input. So you can think of it as a gas pedal. Like if you're pushing in or pushing down further, a bigger number, it's going to go faster. So if I put it to 1, it's going at a value of 1 per second. If I go to 0, it's going to stop. The nice thing about the speed too is I can use a negative number, so you can put in -1 and it'll count backwards. So this is a real nice way of controlling things if you want to have something like speed up, slow down. I use this all the time. So I'm going to put it back to forward. Now why did I use a null chop? Basically I want to use this, I want to take this channel and I want to control, let's say, I want to animate this, so I want to use move this phase parameter with it. So I want to make a connection from this data into this parameter. And to do this, we do something called exporting chops or chop channels. The reason I put a null in here is because if I was just to put it here in the constant and connect it directly, then when I put down the speed, I would have to break that connection and make a connection from the speed. And then if I wanted to do more math later on, like let's say I want to put in a filter, or I want to put in a clamp so it never goes over 40 or something like that, and I had it coming from the speed, I would have to disconnect that, and then I would have to make my new connection from the new operator. So what we do whenever we export values from chops is we always use a null, and we put it at the end of the chain. So it's kind of the last output of the chain.
What is a null?
Basically, it's just a copy. It's just an instance. So it's not using any memory or anything. It's just copying the input.
Yeah.
So it's basically an organizational tool.
Yeah.
So to make it even easier, I can say, let's call this speed out, just so I have a name for it, and I always know that it's going to be coming out of that null, right? So when we make this connection, it'll be more obvious. I'm going to select the ramp so I can see the phase parameter that I want to go to. And what I'm going to do is down here in this viewer. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I'm going to right click on this, speed out, and open the view. And now I have this floating window of the channel. Okay. Now what I can do is when I am over this channel, when it goes green, you can now drag the channel value out, and you just drag it to the phase parameter. And then it's going to pop up when you let go. It pops up this little menu. What do you want to do with this? And I want to say export to chop. And you should see that parameter turn green, indicating that it's being driven by a green chop. So I drag the channel, just left click and drag down to phase, and drop it onto the parameter. And then when it pops up, you select the export chop. If you want to disconnect, you right click on it, and it says remove export now that there's an export there. So I can delete it like that.
Oh, you got that.
So I go over. So you'll see there's also a data link here now, an exported link, and it's showing you that you're exporting channel 1 to the parameter phase. It shows you exactly where that little link is going. So now that the phase is being controlled by this, if we did that little that thing I showed you earlier where you expanded the parameter by left clicking on it or pressing this plus sign, it opens up and it shows you it's a third mode here. It's an export mode, and it's showing you where the channel is coming from. It's coming from speed out, and it's chan 1. If I was working like this, and I don't know where it's coming from, I can even right click on it and say jump to export chop to find out where it's coming from. And where did that go? It did not jump to the export chop. Okay, it's just selecting it for me in the same network. So the reason we use this null is, for example, what if I wanted to put in some more math here? I wanted to let's put in a math chop, insert operator, and I do a math chop. Math. And I might have wanted to do this because I want to kill it sometimes by putting a 0 in the multiply, just like 0. If I had have exported it from speed, I would have had to disconnect that every time I add a new operator, and it's a real pain. Now I can kind of experiment because the connection is at the end of the chain. I can delete this, and I don't have to make any new connections. So anyways, we always use a null chop to do exports. It's just a best practice. Let's do another composite. This time, I want to show you guys the composite operator, which everyone asked about already, so let's go for it. It's under tops. And make sure you're in tops because there's also a composite chop. You don't want the green one, you want the purple top. And we'll connect that to the first input.
Composite.
Composite, yep. And what I'm going to do here is copy and paste the ramp. You can just select the ramp and go Control C and Control V, make another copy of it. And I'm going to change my colors. I want this to be a different looking ramp. And you can do whatever you want, just some freedom with whatever you do here. So if I delete it, I'm just going to select the ramp one. Make sure you just have the one selected, and then copy and paste, which is Control C, Control V.
Or the right-click menu.
Yeah, you can also use the right-click menu. We have copy and paste and cut in all of these menus. So if I select this, ramp one, Control C, and then down here, Control V. Control, yeah, if you're used to Macintosh, don't use Command. Yeah, there's no need to turn this off if you're using output to projector. If you're editing like this, you might find that there's a viewer that is slow, and you can turn it off. But in this case, no problem. So I'm gonna make my different colors again on my second, because I don't want to have the same colors. And I'm just going to move a couple parameters around. You can make it look anything you want here. It doesn't matter. And then let's animate this a little differently. Instead of taking it from the chop here, let's go and look at our first ramp. And we have the phase parameter. And I want to use that phase parameter to animate the other ramp. So if I right-click on that phase, I say copy parameter. Okay, so just right-click on phase, copy parameter, and then go and select your second ramp. You'll see that there's a missing export because we did a copy-paste and it doesn't know where its export is. So we're going to fix that by right-clicking and saying paste references. Right-clicking on phase and say paste references.
Does it now reference from the same place, or does it actually reference from the other ramp? The first ramp.
This is referencing from that ramp's parameter. So,
yeah, so it doesn't reference from up there anymore.
No, not from the chop. It's referencing from that parameter. So it's going to the operator called ramp one. See, it's looking at ramp one. It's finding the parameter phase, and it's just copying it. So the nice thing is now, if I want a different number there, I can use that number and like divide it by 2, and it'll go slower because it's dividing that other parameter by half. So it's just I wanted to show you 2 different ways of driving a parameter and how these parameter modes work. Expression mode and chop mode are a little different, but now we have 2 animated ramps at different speeds, and we can plug the second one into the comp. So now we have the composite top doing its default composite mode. So in the composite top, this is the one you were asking about that does all the different operations. If we look on the first page of parameters in operation, and you open this, you have all sorts of different composite types. And this is where, once you're compositing with whether it's a movie or whatever, you can start playing with this. So select, darker color or whatever you want. If you just want to do an add, the 2 of them add together.
They're most of the primary Photoshop blend modes.
Yeah. So find one you like and whatever. Now this is all procedurally generated, these ramps, from Touch, and it's taking up almost no time and almost no memory. So it's a really nice way to work. These are only 256 by 256. But we can make these very big. Like, let's make them high resolution. So I'm going to do something I haven't showed you yet, but if you want to change the same parameter on 2 different nodes of the same type, you can change multiple nodes at once. So if we select both of the ramps, I box selected them. You can also hold down Shift and select both. And then you go to the common page and find the resolution parameter. Now you can type in any resolution you want here, but we also have a little drop menu on the right-hand side with some commonly used resolutions. So let's say we go, well, you can go whatever size you want, but I'm going to go 1280 by 720. Now, if you want the node to snap to the size, you can just click on the corners and they snap into the size. Just a little tip. Yeah. And now when I right-click on this comp, instead of being a 256 by 256, it's nice, beautiful 1280 by 720, and super fast. Like we're not calculating anything right now. It's just GPU stuff.
But if you put full HD, it gives you like an alarm.
Okay, so that's why I just selected 1280 by 720. If I was to go here and say 1920 by 1080, it works for me, but anyone who's running non-commercial, we have a limit on your resolution at 1280 by 1280. So it will limit it to that size. So if you're running non-commercial, to get around that warning, do 1280 by 720. And if you want the full HD, that's where you need educational or commercial or pro.
But let's say you want to put this ramp over that video with the text that you really did.
That's okay. That's a cool idea. Let's do that. So here's the movie here, right? And I'm just going to move this over, and I'm going to put this in the bottom. In this case, I'm using a composite mode that pin light doesn't matter, or multiply, it doesn't matter the order. But if you were to use something called over, it would be the first input over the second input over the third input. You see what I mean? So because we have no alpha in these ramps, I would have to give them both alpha before I could see that. So if I was to say alpha, and here's an alpha channel down below. So if I go like this, maybe, and then this one, maybe I start seeing the movie come through. But that's why I actually I had selected a composite mode that doesn't matter, like multiply or was I pin light? Yeah. So the order does matter a little bit. Now, in the multi-input operators that have multiple inputs like this, if you select it, you'll see a list of inputs. So you can adjust the order right here. I can move the movie up to the top. And in that case, if I was using over, now the movie will be on top.
Where do you get this?
Sorry. So select select the composite top, and it's down in the bottom of the first page. Actually, it's on the bottom of all of the pages. So you can play with all these modes. They're all fun. So, and again, this is compositing 3 layers at 1280 by 720, and I'm pretty sure none of your computers will have a problem with that. It's only using 128 megabytes, so we can continue to do this until we get close to that maximum GPU that we have on our system. Let's say I get rid of one of the ramps, so we just have this bottom ramp going in, and I could like you say, get another composite and put it in like this, and this one could be multiply. So we have 2 different composites there. Now what I did there is I turned on a second display flag. If you put on multiple display flags, you can look at multiple versions of your image so that you can do comparisons. But it's handy for doing A/B for sure. That's enough Technicolor before lunch.